So in South Africa, there's this constant thing we've been feeling throughout our entire nation, I guess. It's gender-based violence. Now, gender-based violence is determined by this. Gender, the thing that you identify as male or woman, and you get acted upon because of that gender that you've identified with. Now, men can experience gender based violence from other men or from women. It's not too common, but it does happen. Women do get most of the fronts from this gender based violence that we're currently facing, and that is something that we're going to discuss about now. The intricacies, why it happens, how it happens, and how we can prevent this. In this article, which is a government organization, at least government leaning, has provided a really good article for it, and I wish to go through it with you to just uh, give general thoughts and also to expand upon, because this article is but simply a note on a much larger work. If you quickly look at the bottom of it, you can find there's references upon references upon references of large scientific papers to books. This is something that is astronomically huge from all across South Africa's democratic lifespan and previous democratic lifespan. It's an extensive research document, but I'm just going here to just give you a much more better perspective on this. So let's start with this. Gender-based violence is a profound and widespread problem in South Africa, impacting on almost every aspect of life. GBV, which disproportionately affects women and girls, is systematic and deeply entrenched in institutions, cultures, and traditions in South Africa. The introduction will explore what GBV is and some of the forms it takes, examine GBV in South Africa, and begin to explore what different actors are doing to respond to GBV. So, when we gained here, we know immediately that institutions, cultures, and traditions of Africa make gender-based violence possible and also makes it incredibly worse. So since this is South Africa and a majority of South African Christians, we're going to go through this Wikipedia article to see how women are viewed in Christianity. So now there's a wide variety of different sects of Christianity, but the predominant view of women, as we can find over here. Okay, theology, yeah, church practice. So, here you go. So, how women are viewed is, again, as you can see here, Christians leaders through history have been patriarchal, taking names which underscored male leadership in the church, and father, and the basically father in a different language and whatnot. And again, this excludes women, meaning that they don't really have these high attained goals, which immediately tells us that women aren't really valued as positions of power, especially because in Christianity, they're mostly viewed as too, how do I say this in a very, okay, wait, to continue the generations onward. And that is very trying to make sure it's not too degenerate, I guess. But because a lot of Christians view women as just banks to continue their lines down the future. This may not be an active thing that they may be thinking, but this is certainly a passive way that they are viewing women. And there's a whole bunch of lists from, again, as we can see here, from testimonies to not only reviews of it from Christian authors and Christian theologians. See women, it's something that's a huge theme throughout the Bible. And also for the traditions and institutions. Traditions in South Africa have normally placed women in a much more subservient role. Afrikaner culture is very clear with this. Women weren't really given the same amount of respect as a man does. So in this example, I can give you a little story. So here's a man and here's a woman. The man goes into a political career, gets very famous, gets very big and whatnot. And here's a woman. The woman stays at the house, cleans, cooks, and bears children. Those aren't tasks that seem to be at least not open to a lot of things. The man, the politician, could be a politician if he wants to. He could be a steel worker. He could be a miner. He could be an accountant for all he wants to. This man has a lot more options open to him than the woman. The woman is restricted only to those three things, and all of those things are to emphasize their subservience to the man. That is what they mean by like traditions and cultures being subservient. Now, this does happen in black cultures a lot, and this is a problem in black cultures as well. I'm just more familiar with Afrikaner culture than black cultures. What is gender-based violence? I already went through that at the start. Forms of gender-based violence. Now, here's the thing. Violence does, as I said before, is committed not only to just women, but also to men as well. This article doesn't suggest that, but it does happen. Mostly in a weird way about it, where men are trying to insult men by having sexual relationships with them, by saying they're wrong to have sexual relationships with men or something like that. It's a really odd thing. As we can see here, violence against LGBTI. However, it is possible for people of all genders to be subject to GBV. For example, GBV is often experienced by people who are seen as not conforming to their assigned gender roles, such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and or intersex people. As we can see here, gay people are oftentimes mocked by men. And in Afrikaner culture, I know in black culture they do this well. Again, I'm just more familiar with Afrikaner culture. In Afrikaner culture, gays are often thought of as not much as now, but back in the day, they always thought as ruining the Afrikaner culture, because Afrikaner culture back in the day was hyper nationalist in thinking that we are the folk, we are together, and we will continue our line unto generations. And gay people were kind of not doing that a lot, I guess. They kind of didn't want to do that. And it's weird how Afrikaners thought that because they were thinking they were going to have children, where gay people do want children. At least not all. Not gay people do wish to have children. It's just not all of them wish to have children because again they're kind of disincentivized. But that's another topic for another day. That's something that Afrikaner people have done a lot and still to an extent do. Immediate partner violence, basically. In a relationship, you can be abused. Domestic violence, married people. Sexual violence, basically, you can just be sexually assaulted, raped, and stuff like that. And to a wide variety of areas. Work, as it says here, work and home, but also on the street, farm areas, you can also be kidnapped to do as well. And then there's indirect structural violence. Which basically means this. The systems that we live under can, in fact, and most often have in the past, been heavily biased against one gender and heavily favored against one gender. This has happened a lot, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Now, GBV in South Africa. Now, again, this is where it's going through. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to go through the specific ones that I'll be using for points later. So it should be right here. Yeah, South Africa faces a high prevalence of gang rape, and men who rape do so in the first time as teenagers, and almost all men who ever rape do so in their mid-20s. And there's a lot more to this. It also says most women are raped, but it also says right here, male victims of rape under study group one of the KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape found that 9.6% of men reported having experienced sexual victimization by another man. So it does happen. It does prove here and whatnot. Again, more information out here will give us a much more clearer picture. Drivers of GBV, and this is basically just saying what factors would lead to this now. This is mostly going through patriarchy and saying how that is, I'll go into more specifics because I don't think simply patriarchy is a good enough term to be able to explain all why men are doing this. I wish to go into much more immediate and more immediate factors that you can see and observe now that lead to GBV happening. Then there is impact of gender-based violence. So this is basically just going through what basically a lot of people can intuitively know what this says. In healthcare facilities will be overwhelmed, HIV will spread a lot more, reproductive health would, whew, whew, that is whew, unprofessional. Reproductive health will be at risk, especially sexually transmitted disease, and mental health, meaning that women won't be as productive as they are. Again, for any good economy, and mental health, psychological health, and economic health are vital for the economy to grow, and this will definitely hurt the economy. Then what do we do? So this last bit I'm not going to go through too heavily, but prevention response. South Africa does a lot of response instead of prevention. Response meaning having social workers who are there immediately to be able to guide them after post rape and to help prevent any diseases or unwanted pregnancies that may happen. And for prevention, which it says it needs to be focused on more but doesn't give specifics, which I'm going to do now. Prevention. Now, how do we prevent rape? A lot of times you can see often people will say, well, if she didn't want to get raped, why did she have to wear uh, that skinny dress and whatnot? Now, this isn't really a way to do it to prevent rape because a person who's gonna rape is gonna rape someone regardless of their choice of clothing and whatnot. So what really should be looked at is this: preventing rape, it needs at least two factors. One, you need to make people aware of how rape is done, such as if you're not going to be in a dark alleyway, you need to understand this. Someone who's trying to emotionally manipulate you, and this is something how you can find if a sexual predator, and this can apply to a lot of things, but this is for one of them. So they're really attentive in the early stages, meaning that they're very trying to calm and trying to gain your trust. They're trying to be very, very endearing, innocent-like, as this one suggests. And the second one is they use manipulative language. So they would often, as I say, gaslighting. Just quick summary of gaslighting, basically meaning that you would obfuscate or you would deny that they said something. Instead, they said something actually else. Like, oh, I went to a party last Sunday with my friends. And so I was like, no, you went to a party with me. Now, they're not denying that they went to a party with your friends, but they're saying that the reason the people that you went with, that you specifically went with, is with them, not with the other people. Then there's they make it seem normal. So basically, that the behavior that they're imitating, manipulating you, is normal, and no one is just like it's it's fine, nothing's wrong, it'll be okay. They're trying to make it seem like it's normal. Then they play the victim. Now, this is a thing that you have to be aware with, like with anyone in your life. This is just uh, a good indicator of someone who's genuine with their feelings and someone who's just awful and just wants to use you to just make themselves feel better. Is they play the victim. Now, basically, that they would obfuscate your criticisms, right? That, oh no, I'm so bad. Like, if you're in a relationship and you criticize this person, they could say, oh, but I pay for a lot of things and I give you so much things. Or they may say, I'm so stressed out, I'm just feeling so bad lately, and you're the only thing that makes me feel really good, and this doesn't really make me feel better. That's something that they may use to make you feel bad and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and try to give them more power in that way. Again, make sure you are aware of this. This doesn't happen for everyone who uses these type of arguments, but you need to be extremely aware for this. They ridicule them. Now, this is basically, make fun of them for their appearance, for how they look, how they act, and their friends that they hold near and dear, or the family even. Now, this is also an important step for any sexual predator, is that they, as we get here, number 7, it disempowers them, but we'll get to that now. Pushes boundaries sexually, so they basically may go farther than you're sexually aware. You may be very vanilla, and you're like, okay, I don't want to go any further than this, which obviously isn't that great. Then they disempower them. So again, this is the stage where this is like extremely bad. Warning signs should be blaring out of your eyes and ears. Blues and reds should be flashing from your head, because this is so vital to know. They will try to remove you from your family, remove you from your friends, and remove you from social interactions entirely, and to be only theirs, to lock you into a cage where they can only be the ones that enter and exit. This is something that you're going to have to be very weary of. Secretly boasts about their conquests. Now, the thing is, the sexual predators, they're kind of dumb, right? Because if you are, if it's a man, and you're another man, like, hey, how many sex have you gotten? How the sex you view? They'll often be absolutely demonstrably just like, oh, I'm so great, I get so much, and they just keep coming to me, and whatnot. And if you're another sexual predator, they'll be more open about it and how they do it. This is a pretty good article. I suggest you all should read it. It will be in the link description if you want to see it. So yeah, that's one of the ways that you can prevent um, one of the prevention methods. Another one is in school learning. So in my time in school, right, I've learned a couple of things. They tell you how to prevent like pregnancy and whatnot, and they tell you a bunch of other things about sex, like genitalia and how reproduction works, but they don't really tell you how to spot predators nor to prevent these things from happening. Again, one thing happens is that they try to keep people vulnerable. It's not how people perceive it to be, where it's like a dark alleyway and they kidnap you and whatnot. That does happen, and it's a problem that is in South Africa. But it does happen that they just try to manipulate you into trapping you, then kidnapping you. They try to do it like that because that's less alarming, right? Someone disappearing in the middle of light, that's alarming, and that's cause for some huge response. But for a friend that you've known for a couple of days and whatnot, or not even a couple of days, like maybe weeks or months, and you're just going with them, no one would really bat an eye at that. Then no one would really think that was too unusual. So that's something that should be taught in schools very vigorously. It's You need to know how to spot sexual predators, rapists, and a whole multitude of other things. Like, that's very important. Now, we went through this article and we learned a bunch of things. We learned about um, women are targeted the most, the different types of gender-based violence that can be committed, and prevention responses. We've learned about that. But one thing I think many of these articles and many of these videos don't really address too well is this. How do we stop this, like effectively, like systematically, long term? And I think this is a thing that they also do. They rarely mention men and mostly focus on women in this respect. Now, I don't want to obfuscate saying that the women aren't important in the situation. They demonstrably are. But I want to say if this is to be something that is to be fixed, we need to find a way to include men in this. Now, why do men commit a lot of rape and sexual offenses? One, they kind of normalize to do that. As we've seen in this article, it says right here, that teenagers do this. Teenagers. There must be something going on there that's normalizing their behavior to commit these acts of, you know, these sexual acts. And that's something that a lot of men, if you get them riled up enough, will talk about, like how they're great and how women are subservient to their needs and how they're just the best ever. And that's something that a lot of men face and whatnot, and should be curtailed, is that no, you're not. Like, women are their own human beings as well, and they have their own sexual desires and needs, and they can sometimes just reject you out of hand. They don't owe you anything. A lot of men feel like they're just owed sex because they're a man, because they're the domineering one, which leads to our second point, that men are aggressive with their sexual needs. They and and studies do suggest that men are more sexually active than women, but it doesn't suggest that there's a huge difference. It's not a difference of like, here's women's sexual and then here's men. It's more of, here's women's and then here's men. There's not a lot of difference in there. So that's mostly a societal thing, that men are supposed to be very sexually active and supposed to be sexually domineering, which leads to our next point, which is men oftentimes aren't given the respect nor the emotional attention that they need, nor are they told that emotional attention is a normal part of being a human being. A lot of times you can see that men are supposed to be stoic, isolated bars of steel, you know? They're not supposed to have emotions. They're supposed to just go through life as it is. A lot of advice to men that are given to the feelings that they feel, like loneliness, depression, and whatnot, is that either you're seeking attention, you're not actually depressed, or try to curtail how they feel. And that's something that's very important. BBC article here, going through a Professor Tumir Tuner Moore at Leeds Beckett University, suggests up to 10% of men having sexual thoughts about children, and this is pedophiles, but this can still be applied to rapist allegations because, again, young girls are also being affected by this. They suggest pedophiles are most likely to offend when their self-esteem is low and their stress levels are high. This is something that is so wacky about it, because if men weren't so sad, if men weren't so like isolated about their emotions and spoke a lot more about it, they wouldn't commit so much violence. They would start to talk about their problems a lot more and try to get through it, and not to try to be as what a lot of people suggest they are, just aggressive monsters. And that's something I think we need to not only do in our schools, but to promote as just a general cultural shift in our new way of thinking. Men are human beings requiring of emotions, and we shouldn't treat them like bastions. Like when we advanced the social and economic upliftment of women, we kind of left men in the dirt here. Men oftentimes do feel like they're not being given like respect and whatnot. And while some of it is a bit odd, like, sorry that no one's just at your feet having sex with you. I'm really sorry about that, my man. But it is that they're not allowed to speak about their emotions in a real way. And sometimes they're, ooh, this fly's bothering me now. Sometimes these are issues that need to be addressed. And men do need to be treated on an equal level to women on how they're treated emotionally. Women can just talk about their emotions, and it's a good thing, because that's a good, healthy way of expressing and solving your problems, is talking about them. Men aren't given that same courtesy because of the situation that they are. Patriarchy doesn't just screw women, it screws men as well. So we went through a lot of topics today. We went through gender-based violence, the causes of it, and the prevention of it. We went through a lot of examples of how women are mistreated and how we can try to prevent that, and how men are mistreated and how we can prevent that as well. These are a lot of topics. All of these things will be in the description below for your own personal reading if you want. Thank you for watching. Most of these videos will be attempted to be on Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it'll be on Monday if something's going on. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you do have any more thoughts, please do try to make a discussion about it. Again, don't try to be rude about it. I am trying my best to be as unbiased as possible. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.